What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you stopping by. And today I am going to try my best to predict the winners of both the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments. Feel free to leave your predictions down in the comments. And before you do, if you guys want to see more wrestling content, be sure to follow me on my socials. The links will be in the description and in the pinned comment down below. And also, if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot. I appreciate you guys. Let's get right to it. So we have the King of the Ring tournament here with Obafemi already advancing in a really fun match. We then have Dom versus Braun Breaker versus Trick Williams versus Damian Priest. Now, I'm picking Braun Breaker to win this, and this is also assuming that Braun Breaker isn't injured. I think we've all seen that video of Breaker limping in the hotel lobby after his match with Seth. So again, this is assuming that Braun Breaker is not injured. I'm gonna pick him to win this match. We then have Seth Rollins versus Javon Evans versus Tala Tonga versus Ricky Saints. I would like to see Javon Evans get a shock win here, but I think it's Seth Rollins. I really don't have a problem with Seth, but again, Javon would be kind of cool. But Seth is gonna win that match, in my opinion. We then have Jay Uso versus LA Knight versus Royce Keys versus Finn Balor. And for me, I think this is really between Jay Uso and LA Knight. I think Jay is going to take this maybe with some help from the bloodline, which is going to further upset LA Knight, but also with Roman telling Jay that, he wants him to go after Cody's championship and sit at the other end of the table. I think Jay has to at least win one of these matchups. We'll then have Obafemi versus Braun Breaker in the semifinals, and I do think this is where Brock Lesnar will come back and cost Obafemi the King of the Ring tournament, which is going to set up that third and final match at SummerSlam, which could be a retirement match as well. Then on the other side, we have Seth Rollins versus Jay Uso, and I do think this is where the ride for Jay Uso is going to stop. I think Seth, besides Obafemi, I think Seth is really the biggest favorite when it comes to this King of the Ring tournament. So I do see Seth defeating Jay Uso. This may cause trouble in the bloodline with Roman, who knows, but I do think Seth is going to win that matchup. And then in the finals, with a matchup that seems to never really end, Braun Breaker versus Seth Rollins. Again, assuming that Braun Breaker is not injured. Now, the question is, do they have Braun Breaker take back-to-back L's to Seth Rollins? I do think the matchup that WWE and probably most people want to see is Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns at SummerSlam, for the World Heavyweight Championship. I'm going to say it's probably going to be Seth winning this whole tournament because, again, that matchup I think is just too good to pass up. And especially with Roman assembling his newer version of the bloodline, I think him going against Seth with their history is probably the way to go when it comes to SummerSlam. And then in the Queen of the Ring tournament, Io Sky has already advanced. So we then have Liv Morgan versus Becky Lynch versus Alexa Bliss versus Chelsea Green. I also am in the camp that I don't think Liv Morgan needed to be in this tournament, but because she is, I think there's a solid reason for it. And I don't think she loses, at least in the first matchup. So I'm going to go Liv Morgan. I think you can make the argument of maybe like an Alexa Bliss to set up a Bliss versus Charlotte in the semifinals. That'd be fire. But I do think, again, Liv is in here for a reason. So I'm going to say that Liv wins her first matchup. So Ruka versus Lyra versus Charlotte versus Jade Cargill. I kind of gave it away already, but I do think Charlotte Flair is going to win this. She is inching closer and closer to the main event scene. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see Charlotte moving on. Maybe there is some kind of shenanigans between Charlotte and Jade. There might be interferences from Alexa Bliss, from Jade's baddies, but I do think Charlotte Flair is going to get the win here. And then on the other side, we have Bayley versus Raquel versus JC Jane versus Kiana James. Again, back to the Judgment Day stuff. Because Roxanne lost her match, I initially thought it might be Roxanne moving on and causing tension between her and Liv, but since she lost, I do think Raquel at least wins this matchup as well. I think you need to create that tension of, okay, Liv looks at Raquel like we both won our first matchups. Like, what's going to happen? I think that's going to happen. So I think we end up getting Io versus Raquel in the semifinals. Now, for me, this is where things get really difficult because I can see two different scenarios. I can see a scenario where Liv and Raquel make it to the finals, and then we have that tension of like, Liv maybe wanting Raquel to just eat the pin for her and not really fight. But at the same time, they have the history of Liv eliminating Raquel at the Rumble, and just, causing more attention for the Judgment Day. I do think there's a world that can happen. I'm gonna say that I believe I'm gonna see Charlotte and Io in the finals, and I believe this is going to cause tension for the Judgment Day as well, because Liv and Raquel can both argue, like, where was the Judgment Day in my match? The same way that Roxanne Perez was pretty much, throwing shots like, I could have used my family out there to help me. So also, I think it's important to note the fact that it's being reported that Stephanie Vaquer should be returning anytime soon from injury. And if that's the case, we could definitely be seeing Stephanie screw Liv out of the Queen of the Ring tournament, whether it's the first round, the semifinals, or the finals. Either way, I do think Stephanie Vaquer is going to come back and ruin that for Liv, just to kind of set them back into that story that they were in post WrestleMania, especially with the original plan of them having their rematch at Backlash. But again, due to the injury, it's been postponed. So I do think we might be seeing Stephanie Vaquer soon, and that's going to definitely affect the tournament as it is. Now, here things get even more difficult, right? Because I think you can make an argument for either of these women to win the Queen of the Ring tournament. Io could win and face Liv Morgan. Io can also win and face Rhea. Her and Rhea have that history where Io has been very successful against Rhea, and Rhea has not managed to defeat Io. So why wouldn't she look at Rhea, besides the fact that they're friends, but why wouldn't she look at Rhea as like, that's almost a sure win for her, right? Then on the other side, you have Charlotte Flair, where Charlotte Flair, I think if she wins, I think the person she's going to face is Rhea Ripley. She has been becoming friends with Rhea, but you know, it's that flair in her. She wants to compete for world titles. And I think she wants to prove herself against Rhea. So I could see her also picking Rhea. So I don't think there's any wrong answer when it comes to this. I think Io or Charlotte would be a dope Queen of the Ring. But I'm gonna go with Io Sky winning the Queen of the Ring tournament, and either matchup that she picks, whether it's Liv or Rhea, I think is going to be a banger. So let me know down in the comments who you think is winning both of these tournaments. I feel like the women's one, the Queen of the Ring, was a little more difficult to try to predict, but I think it's going to be fun either way. So let me know your thoughts.